Live. I'm alive. Wow. All right. So the name of this one is Power of Naming and Tribalism. Um, my last videos were about Matthew chapter 18, rebuking protocol. I made a few mistakes. I wasn't as careful as I could have been about naming. So talking about naming. And when we do this naming thing, the other thing that happened was this. I tapped into some of the tribalism rooted in love and what I'd call the hyperactive threat detector. So these are things about being human that we have to wrestle with, or we get to wrestle with. But I've got a clip pulled up from a movie called Migration. And I guess I worry a little that there would be some kind of a strike if I showed it. I don't know. I see people do it. But if I add to stage and I click play.
Mac. I'm the chump, and I'm the leader of this group of hard-working birds you just called vermin.
I'll pause there. So what you have in this clip right now is the this head of the pigeons is very small, has a broken leg, and is named the chump. And it sounds like Mac, the duck. He just named all the pigeons vermin, and so you have a conflict because of these names that were used in combination with the kind of tribalism that can happen. You know, the chump loves the pigeons, and the pigeons love the chump, and you have this stranger who pops in, Mac, and that's kind of what's happening.
Okay. So listen, chump.
What? Did you just call me?
And so there's some irrationality going on here, right? And I would connect it in with the N word in our culture. I went to school at a public school with lots of black people, and these black people would call themselves the N word. But if I were to call them the N word, it would not be received well. So you have this. It's irrational. There is an irrationality that's connected to hyperactive threat detectors and these the connections, the relationships between people, and it's irrational. Like, it doesn't make sense at a glance why this happens, because it's something to do with our nature. It's like our instincts, where it's not like we do it and there's good reason for it. Or at least the reasons aren't immediately apparent why we have these hyperactive threat detectors and this these important, why the connections between and the relationships between our neighbors, our tribe, are so important. They happen subconsciously, and they are instinctual, the way that if a snake tries to bite your leg. I watched David Blaine recently, and I was so impressed when the snake tried to bite the leg, and instinctually the leg moves. And what can happen within us is that we see snakes everywhere, and that's not a good situation. And then there's a way to engineer environment so that we see snakes everywhere, and so that's not good either. Let's I don't want to play any more of that. Well, I don't want to get any copyright strikes. I think that makes my point. It's pretty funny. I would add that I kind of identify with Mac the duck a little bit because Mac is just using a word um, without realizing like or understanding why the pigeons become so defensive and overprotective. Like they have no reason, no rational reason to perceive Mac as a threat. He knows that he's not a threat, but for them, there's a bunch of instincts, subconscious, instinctual group dynamics going on that I don't even think any of the characters realize what's happening. And so, in a way, I think humans are a lot like this. That we're all a bunch of, uh, we're like the NPCs in World of Warcraft or something, the non-player characters, and these subconscious programs are running, and we don't have awareness of, like, we don't want to even look at ourselves honestly and see the things that come naturally that are good, and the things that don't come naturally which are good, and then the lack of that ends up causing problems. So it doesn't come naturally for us um, to perceive threats accurately, or we definitely won't do it perfectly. And it doesn't, yeah, and there's reasons, right? So I'm going to look at some comments. We have, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Andrew, I'll share a link. Copy. I know Andrew. I do not know Nix. This could be like a very deep question, like, what are we doing here? What's the meaning of life? But it also could be like, what's happening in this video right now? And am I naming? Right? And so naming, I don't think we can avoid naming actually.
Hey, what's good, Gavin?
Hello, hello.
Hello,
Hey, Jacob. Brother Jacob.
brother Gavin.
I'm glad you're out walking.
Well, I'm not. It's 7 o'clock in the morning, but I took my dog for a walk at midnight, so she wouldn't wake me up at 7 o'clock in the morning. But she woke me up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I didn't hear your prologue, so I'm gonna ask you to give me the TLDR.
So I did a review on, just to mention that my last videos were on Matthew 18 rebuking protocol, and I stepped in it with uh, this power of naming that we have. I didn't realize that necessarily what I was stepping into. And then there's also a kind of tribalism happening in which, and so there's within us subconsciously can be these hyperactive threat detectors combined with the strength of the relationships of our people, our tribe. And so because of this, we can have a tendency to become overprotective.
I think the body analogy in 1 Corinthians 12 is incredibly, incredibly important. And I think there is a lot of times when people rebel against it in ways that remind me of the cancer analogy. So, you know, your heart muscles are important and your brain cells are important. But if you get brain cells in your heart, or you get heart muscle tissue in your brain, that's what we call cancer,
Mm-hmm.
right? The wrong thing growing in the wrong place. And it's not like so now with modern genetics, we understand this a lot better. Like, it's not like your heart muscle cells and your brain DNA cells, like cell DNA, are different. The DNA is the same,
Hmm.
right? It's all you. But in order for you to function, you have to have differentiation. And people rebel against that a lot. And it's just cancerous. Does that make any sense?
For me, it would help to be specific, but in being specific, you risk doing the naming, which could trigger the hyperactive threat detectors and relational
So, okay,
bonds.
let's talk about the body analogy more, right?
Okay.
So, um, specifically, uh, if it is Paul of Tarsus there, which I have my doubts, um,
I
he,
did go look for 1 Corinthians 12, but I didn't see the body exactly there. I was going to read it, but
oh, go ahead, read it.
well, 1 Corinthians uh, I'm in verse 12. I need to go to chapter 12. My bad.
Chapter 12.
Yeah, I was in 1 Corinthians 1:12. Okay, go ahead, Jacob. I'll find it.
Um, so there he specifically asks if the ears uh if the ears do the seeing, then where be the hearing, right? We have to be willing. We have to, like, part of trusting in God, part of what religio does, what religion does, is allow all these weird human beings who are so different from each other to connect and cooperate, which is a real miracle when you consider it, right?
Hmm.
Like when you think of sponges, or you think of uh, a beehive, right? It's not like they're conscious. The individual parts are conscious of the whole, um, and that is fractal. And
Hmm.
so, we as human beings, sometimes in following, I would say actually always, in following our religion, are in fact following a um, a plan, much like the the plan that tells your heart cells where it should be, and where your brain cells where it should be. And I don't think the heart cells. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I do know that they don't actually comprehend what they're doing, and that's very similar to us. Yet we desire that knowledge, and the
You're
knowledge
break,
of God
you are you are
beyond
breaking up
us.
just a little bit, Jacob, but I think I'm catching better now.
Um, and and so, I mean, there has to be a level of just pure trust that when we go according to the protocols that are set for us, um, that it will be eventually all okay, and we will only know it afterwards.
Hmm.
Found it?
Yeah, yeah. It's a. I guess what's interesting
Read it out
is.
loud.
Oh yeah, okay. And I could read the whole chapter. I mean, it seems to all be connected for this chapter.
Yeah, that's why I
Okay.
didn't give you a verse number.
Okay. Now concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, I would not have you ignorant. You know, I'm going to switch to ESV. Honestly, uh, that's my. It's my stream. I pick. Okay. Now concerning spiritual gifts, brothers, I do not want you to be uninformed. You know that when you were pagans, you were led astray to mute idols, however you were led. Therefore, I want you to understand that no one speaking in the Spirit of God ever says Jesus is accursed, and no one can say Jesus is Lord except in the Holy Spirit. Now, there are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are varieties of service, but the same Lord. And there are varieties of activities, but it is the same God who empowers them all and everyone. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. For to one is given through the Spirit the utterance of wisdom, and to another the utterance of knowledge according to the same Spirit. To another, faith by the same Spirit. To another, gifts of healing by the one Spirit. To another, the working of miracles. To another, prophecy. To another, the ability to distinguish between spirits. To another, various kinds of tongues. To another, the interpretation of tongues. All these are empowered by one and the same Spirit, who apportions to each one individually as he wills. For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. For in one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and all were made to drink of one Spirit. For the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would be the sense of hearing? If the whole body were an ear, where would be the sense of smell? But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them, as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And on those parts of the body that we think less honorable, we bestow the greatest honor, and our unpresentable parts are treated with greater modesty. And our unpresentable parts are treated with greater modesty.
Just to be clear, I mean, I think he's actually referring to circumcision there.
Mm-hmm. Which our most presentable parts do not require. But God has so composed the body, giving greater honor to the part that lacked it, that there may be no division in the body, but that the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer together. If one member is honored, all rejoice together. Now you are the body of Christ and individually members of it. And God has appointed in the church first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then miracles and gifts of healing, helping, administrating, and various kinds of tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Do all work miracles? Do all possess gifts of healing? Do all speak with tongues? Do all interpret? But earnestly desire the higher gifts, and I will show you a still more excellent way. It's very, very beautiful.
Yep, that's why I think he must have plagiarized it from someone.
And that's your part, I guess, right?
Hey, yeah, like when I read it, I was like, wow, this sounds like Jewish and sensible. It couldn't possibly be from Paul. And then I read 1 Corinthians 1 and realized, oh, he had a co-author. This must have been the co-author.
You're poking. You're poking.
Hey, look, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not.
Yeah.
But
I like that there's something being pointed at there that I think is good and true and beautiful. So I don't know why
yeah,
we have to give credit to anyone there, except that the
exactly.
creator of it, the thing that's being pointed at, you know.
Yeah.
The yeah, I guess. Well, why does the naming? Yeah, it's like there's something that happens in the naming where, like, I'll see it with my wife where it will it will hurt. I can hurt her. Uh, she can become offended, defensive. There's this naming thing that we can do, and it definitely doesn't feel good.
Well, I mean, okay, you have to realize naming things, right? Speaking logos is incredibly powerful. And
Mhm.
I believe it's in Revelation that Jesus is depicted with a sword in his mouth,
Right.
right? Um, and in Genesis, right? How does God bring the world into being? He speaks it into being. And what does Adam do with the animals? He names them, right? And doing that is a specific power of
You are breaking
speech,
up a little bit more.
which is incredibly important, and it cuts both any power, right? Like the Talmud says, "Kol hagadol michavero, yitzro gadol michavero."
Aha.
Whoever is more powerful than his, whoever has more capacity than someone else has a greater evil inclination. Is the actual what thing it says, but really, you know, it's just the aphorism: with great power comes great responsibility. Because anytime we as human beings do something, um, we we risk doing it wrong, and that's dangerous.
Right. But I think the issue is that, um, yeah, the big one is that we basically have a megaphone on the internet, and there's the audience is large and diverse, and will hear the words differently. And there's no way for me to know exactly what each person's going to hear when I say the words.
Look, that's the case when you're a, a baseball coach for little kids. That's the case when you're talking to an audience of 30. It's not like my channel has such a huge audience. Yeah, there are people, who may be watching who are just lurkers or who stumbled on a stream or something. But ultimately, this is actually a microcosm of the world, right?
Yeah,
Like when a pastor speaks, like you go to a mega church, right?
I do.
Like imagine that pastor making his sermon every week.
He has an aphorism that he likes to put the cookies on the bottom shelf. He wants to make sure they're easy to get to.
Okay,
And so, like, he's not putting the cookies up on the top shelf so only the tallest, strongest people can get to them.
okay,
Yeah. That's so he has things that he does and he's aware of his mission, that he's trying to help as many people as possible, and he's speaking to a lot of people, including people who are like children, right?
right.
Right.
And many people he's never actually met or talked to in any length. I mean, how long have you been going there, and how much does he actually know about your individual situation?
Zero. He knows nothing about me.
Okay, so like, yet that is his function in that church,
Yeah.
right? And it's very powerful and it's dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah. I know Andrew's in
And
here, but
foolishly, a lot of people would be like, hey, I want to do that. It's like, do you really? Do you really?
Yeah. Especially if you're going to get disciplined by God when you mess up.
Look, again, Proverbs says, and I'll let you translate this to English, or you can wait and I'll translate it to English. Ein tzadik ba'aretz asher asa tov v'lo chata. Pretty much, I'm probably paraphrasing, but it says there is no righteous man who has done good but has not, and the word there is sin, but specifically the word chata comes from an archery term, which means to miss the mark, right? And it refers to that person as tzaddik, right? As a just man, as a righteous man. So we're talking about a righteous person,
Right.
who, like, it's just not possible to do good in the world without sinning.
Right. I
And
actually
you
had
have to accept that.
I had something happen recently where I I was no longer afraid. I I've been driven my whole life by fear of hurting people's feelings or seeking praise, and it kind of disappeared on me. It
Mhm.
startled my wife. It's yeah.
Are you
I just
speaking and I'm not hearing?
I was leaving some silence there
Uh-huh.
because
Okay.
it's a what I found is that I'll say things, yeah, I'll say things and people don't hear the things I say. It's and that's and then it's like how much of that is my fault?
What has become even more clear to me, in the process of learning about counseling and actually practicing it, is people most often hear what they think they hear. Um, it's when you speak to someone, 90% of what they're hearing you say is their own contribution to the conversation,
Mhm.
which makes it that much more difficult to speak to that person, but to speak to multiple people simultaneously. And
Yeah.
I think that's a big reason why we talk in narrative, and why, um, having uh, liturgies and allusions are so important.
Mhm. Yeah, I remember reading Corey Ten Boom, and it's like as I was reading it, it's like my mind got tricked into the mind of a saint or something like that. I was like, so I was. I think narrative can help people do that, to try and see the world through someone else's shoes, through someone else's eyes.
I'm looking at the comments. People are, as they are wont to do, making circumcision jokes. So did I tell you what happened when I took CW to synagogue with me when I was in Minneapolis?
You warned him. You warned him.
No, I took him to synagogue with me.
Okay, but I think you did warn him about what would happen in the liturgy, but maybe you're pointing at something else as well.
Yes. So at the end of the whole thing, like, this was one of those very, very Hasidic, what we call Heimish, um, which comes from the word home. Uh, Very Heimish synagogues. About 15 to 20 guys, just very, very brotherly, and the word is Heimish. And so we went to synagogue, and at the end of synagogue, there was there's a calendar that the Rebbe made back in 1940s, but I might have the exact year wrong. But for a particular, anyway, so the it's like one of those calendars. I'm sure you've seen them where there's like a food, there's a thought for the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so at that synagogue, every day they read at the end of the liturgy from that let me switch to my computer.
Mm-hmm.
They read from that. Here, I'll be right back.
All right.
I am back.
You are the Hebrew hammer.
Oh, that's from Sartori's
Yeah.
from Sartori's whatchamacallit, UFC thing.
Yeah. Or yeah, wrestling.
Yeah. So so they read from that calendar at the end of the synagogue, and the Rebbe is talking about the three forms of circumcision in the Bible: the circumcision of the lips, the circumcision of the heart, and actual circumcision, right? And he talks about how that conforms to the three faculties of the soul, which are thought, speech, and action, right? So circumcision of the heart corresponds to your thought, circumcision of the lips to speaking, and actual circumcision to yes, circumcision of the penis, Yon God. If you need that from me, it is available. I did say the word penis. Go ahead and clip it.
Literally.
I did not mean that. Whatchamacallit? But of course, after that,
You're naming things, Jacob. You know these names get stolen over time.
And yeah, and there's a reason why 1 Corinthians 12 says the parts that are modesty, yeah, you are the ones which are most honored, right? But so like people start making all kinds of dick jokes at the end of liturgy. And I was like, okay, CW, now you're getting the really Hamish experience, because you realize, oh, like this group of Hasidic guys getting together early in the morning to say their prayers, they're just like all the other guys, right?
Yeah. I've been fascinated about the Jewish lifestyle because I think I told Yosef it's like I get to interview an alien, I think I posed the question to him today, and it was like, what happens? How does it handled at the dinner table, for example, when people, like with my children, one will say, he said this, and the other one will say, no, I didn't, and I wonder, kids do that, and then do adults do that, and does this happen at Shabbat, and how does it get handled, And maybe the culture has a way of dealing with it.
There is actually a
My lovely wife just brought me some breakfast.
oh, that's very nice of her.
She is an amazing woman.
I believe you. She puts up with you. That's amazing.
I mean, it's a yeah. It was what's funny is all the family members they'd come in behind my back and say thank you so much.
Um, the now I'm forgetting. Oh, there is a channel. I think it's called Peter Santinelli.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I watched that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, so he went into the Hasidic neighborhood, and he did a lot of filming.
It's fascinating. I've seen him do that. It's a really cool thing he does.
Yeah, and so he actually got, like, he said they spoke to 10 rabbis to figure out how he could somewhat shoot on Shabbat. And there's this part where the kids are running around chasing each other
Mm-hmm.
on Shabbat, and he chases after them right, with the video, and it was like, yeah, like I think for a lot of people the idea that little Hasidic kids play tag on Shabbat just seems a little foreign, but kids are kids.
Yeah. There's I feel like Judaism has been equipped with traditions that if we borrowed them, if other people borrowed them, it would be good.
Some of them, yeah.
Like eating together as a family around a table.
That's good.
Like,
No, like again, it goes back.
Let me point out a few more. Like if you're going to start a community, you need at least 10, and it might be nice that at least 3 of them are wise enough to be the rabbi.
Yeah, it goes back to the body analogy. Like I just think a lot of people and I won't name what the spirit I'm calling out, because I've called it out too much and people get all kinds of weirded out. But there's a specific spirit out there.
There are cultural differences in the names we use that they mean different things to different people.
Okay, I'll actually say it. It's Protestantism. Like
Okay.
this idea, like there's a pope, right? There is a pope.
I thought you were going to use the Satan name.
The pope of 1 billion people. Guess what? Lots of people aren't going to like him. And in fact, maybe most people are not going to like him. But what else are you going to do?
I would actually say, like a good leader, it has to be not liked.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know that poem from Charles Mackay?
No.
This is one of my favorite poems.
This is a hilarious quote right here. Cassandra says, "I'm listening while making coffee, and I turned up the volume at just the right time for my family to hear." I blame Jacob. I blame that guy.
I wasn't the one who was like insisting on me saying it, but
nobody. You control that. You control that mouth, right?
I do. Okay, so one of my favorite poems. Where is it? You have no enemies, you say? Alas, my friend, the boast is poor. He who has mingled in the fray of duty that the brave endure must have made foes. If you have none, small is the work that you have done. You've hit no traitor on the hip. You've dashed no cup from perjured lip. You've never turned the wrong to right. You've been a coward in the fight.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, Margaret Thatcher carried this poem around with her.
Mm-hmm. One thing I had mentioned today a few times is And so if we read the Bible and come back years later and read the same thing, we can get something new out of it that we didn't get before. And the idea is that that you could do the same thing with our recordings of what we've said. And so like I can mature, go and then I could go back and then listen to a Jacob Facciarecci and say, and it's like, well, I thought he was kind of dumb, or something like that. And then I come back later and I could listen to it again. It's like, maybe not so dumb, you know, right there. And we can do that with each person. And it's always hard to know when you're there that if you're encountering someone who sees things, who's trying to help you see something that you can't see, and you're just thinking that you're smarter than they are. It's always hard to know that.
I'm listening, but I'm gonna go get some stuff. So talk. I'm listening.
Oh no, I get to talk. Let me just do 5 seconds more of this video. That's one thing, Jake. I wonder what the rules are for copyright. I played like 5 seconds and then commented for a while, and played 5 seconds and then commented for a while. And I've seen people do that, and I don't know how you can do that without hurting the channel. I happen to be a connoisseur of children's movies, so some people are connoisseurs of fine wine, but there's a few of us who are connoisseurs of children's movies.
So legally, there's something called fair use, and fair use doesn't have, unfortunately, and it should have any safe harbor provisions, meaning there's nothing that I can say. Sometimes when Congress writes a law, they will make a safe harbor provision. For example, they will say, if you use less than 15 seconds, they could say, they haven't, 15 seconds of a video, that's safe, right? In terms of fair use. But really what fair use, when something is copyrighted and the person who wants to enforce their copyright wants to do it, right? A defense is fair use, which is your, I think that, do I remember the three?
But you as a channel owner, I could be creating a headache for you.
Yes, anytime you play anything. So here, this is from the Copyright Office. And this is their FAQ. How much of someone else's work can I use without getting permission? Under the fair use doctrine of the U.S. copyright statute, it is permissible to use limited portions of a work, including quotes, for purposes such as commentary, criticism, news reporting, and scholarly reports. There are no legal rules permitting the use of a specific number of words, a certain number of musical notes, or a percentage of a work. Whether a particular use qualifies as fair use depends on the circumstances. And so fair use index. So the four things. One, purpose and character of the use, including these are the four things that a court thinks about. Whether, including whether the use is of a commercial nature or is for nonprofit educational purposes. Mm-hmm. 2, copy of the nature of the copyrighted work. 3, amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. And 4, effect of the use upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. Well,
we're obviously going to boost the value because we're amazing.
Well, so for example, if I were to sit here and read Nolan's book straight through, it's possible that he would believe that, but it's also possible that I would be competing with his audiobook sales, right?
Right.
So the way YouTube does it is if one of their designated copyright owners, and there are people that they've recognized as copyright owners, claim something on your video, you're presumed guilty, right?
Mhm.
And there have definitely been cases when I have been using something, and first of all, the owner didn't, the person who was copyright striking me didn't actually own the copyright. They just thought they did.
Mhm.
And with music, with sound, they're using automatic recognition, right? So anytime you're playing the sound of something, there of any other video, unless you know that that channel isn't going to copyright strike you. And so I presume pretty much, PBK, I know he's never going to copyright strike me. I even Jordan Peterson and the other ones, it depends, because Jordan Peterson, it's not like he owns his copyright now.
Right.
Um, it's owned by the Daily Wire, right?
Right.
So there was a case when he actually told PBK he could use something, and on Twitter, like, he tweeted out, "Go ahead and use it," right?
Yeah.
And then the Daily Wire came back and copyright striked PBK, and PBK's like, "Hello," and I was like, "Hey, like, legally, you could fight this," and PBK is like, I'm not going to. There you go. Sartori says he got a strike from John Vervaeke, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Don't mess with that income. Don't mess with that putting the food on the table.
Yeah, I mean, and you could fight it, but ultimately, YouTube will keep you demonetized until you win in court. Which, yeah, what's his name had to do that. Sargon of Akkad actually ended up winning in court after years of fighting with some woman. I forget what her name was, and like, she lost bad. In U.S. courts, it's almost never that the judge gives court costs to the other person. It's like a penalty for bringing a lawsuit that you should have known you should not have brought, right?
Mhm.
So the Aquila, obviously, I think her name was, and he got court costs in U.S. court, which is like unheard of. But he did, but he had to fight it for years.
Yeah. That seems like there's some ethics involved in that.
We live in a fallen world. It's all Mark Lefebvre's fault.
I'm not going to name him and blame him on that. I know that he won't take it seriously. That's part of it too, is that knowing when it's when it's a for serious accusation.
Did you listen to Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson?
I have not. My last Jordan Peterson was Richard Dawkins, which I really enjoyed. It was a long time ago, but it was. I love it when he. I like it when he, like, I liked to listen to him talk to Sam Harris about truth. I liked him talking to Richard Dawkins on this kind of the crossing of memetics and religion uh, territory.
It was good, and one of the things they talked about is the spirit of play.
Mm-hmm.
And um, people who take themselves too seriously, like, they can't make jokes, they can't stand humor, and especially if they don't get get humor, like there's something dangerous there. There's something you have to be careful with. I think Peterson went a little bit too far. I would have pushed back on some of the things he said about um, using fear. I think there are times when you have to. I don't think the use of fear is as tyrannical as, and his understanding of Moses with the staff, I think was, humor. That is obvious. What about those people who have no leeway in terms of things not following strict rules? Yeah. One of my favorite things when I went and visited the Israeli National Museum was they had a big sign at the very beginning that said, all rules have exceptions.
including this one.
They didn't. I don't remember if it said including this one, but you don't necessarily have to, like, if all rules have exceptions, it is like that was a rule.
Yeah, and yet we try to hand our kids some good rules.
It's actually the exceptions that prove a rule. There we go, Mark. Yes, rules are those things which have exceptions. It's the exception that makes the rule. Yeah. Mark and I think alike way too much, which is part of the reason I think God made me bald.
Oh man. But what I've noticed in soccer is that I enjoy the practices more than the games, and I think it's because that in the games, all of a sudden there's a seriousness to the play, where all of a sudden the other coach is yelling, and then I've got one of my players get their head down because they just got yelled at, and then I've got parents over there getting into it, and there's one kid goes running and pushes the other kid, and But when I'm practicing, it's fun, just a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually wanted to talk about politics with people, but like I can't seem to find people who want to seriously discuss politics, and it's been frustrating.
I found a smart guy who did not vote for Trump.
Impossible.
I knew you were going to say it. So, yeah, I like him. I love him. He's actually in your Discord server now. I invited him over, and so hopefully it'll happen. He's interested in being able to have these kinds of conversations, and like his dad, he came from a Catholic family, and his dad is they disagree on politics, but when they come away, it's like, man, that was a great visit. So there's a way of doing things. I think ultimately, like I pointed at the Bill Maher feedback from his visit, and the question the guy I'm telling you about had is like, which one is the performance art? Because I said, now you can see there's performance art. He's, yeah, but which one? Did he do the performance art for Bill Maher? And that, did he do the performance? Which one's the real Trump? He's doing performance art, but how do you know which one's the real one? And I'm like, I mean, fair point. I can see why you would ask that. But I said, I like to look at indicators like family. Do they have kids that love them and that trust them? I'd love to be able to sneak into their dinner table and see what it looks like around the dinner table. But it's hard to know what is the performance art and what is the real person.
See,
this is related to the kayfabe wrestling topic as well.
Yes and no. Like, look, it's not like Donald Trump. Like, he's our first stand-up comedian president. He's our first professional wrestling president. But it's not like you don't know what you're getting. A lot of people who claim that, oh, I don't know which Donald Trump to take seriously. I'm sorry, either you're stupid or you're lying. No, really.
You just come off as you come off so brash, Jacob. Yeah, there's people I love who are not
Are
with
not stupid or lying.
yeah,
Who,
neither one. They're not
who
stupid and they're not lying. What it
and
is they have been lied to.
well, there's a, I'm sorry, there's a level of how often do they have to lie to
Well,
you? And
we're into, we're
look,
into the we're into the tribalism topic now.
no, it's not. No, I'm sorry, but like after what happened with Joe Biden, if you haven't woken up, like okay, so on Tuesday,
I love
uh,
playing devil's advocate here, and I will do that with you if you want me to. And if I were
um,
talking to my friend, I can play devil's advocate with him. Right. So if you want a wrestling partner, I can do it.
um, on Tuesday, I went to a birthday party with a high school friend for a high school friend, and basically all the people there just were completely bought into the what is normal in Los Angeles, which is the narrative of like
I
they
think my
they
friend is in Los Angeles.
they believe everything that CNN tells them.
This is the
Um,
city of angels you're talking bad about.
well, I'm not actually
Have
not
we have
talking
we
so bad.
misnamed
Like
them? Have we misnamed them?
no, look,
No.
one of my friends, all of my friends, almost have what you call it have all of my friends have kids and jobs, and they're too busy to pay a lot of attention to politics. They're just very, very busy. But at the same time, it's kind of like, look, how much do I have to tell you? Like, it's it's been 8 years now.
There's something I had a conversation and it was like Jews are some of the most tolerant people, and they have rules, and they have rules about you can't be these are you can't cross this line, and so that I think for a lot of people just doesn't make sense that you can be tolerant, very tolerant, and you can have boundaries and rules. It just doesn't click. It's hard. It's not obvious that sounds that's very confusing for people. Like, but so there's people who think that tolerance equates to no rules and no boundaries.
That's ridiculous. Like, so Douglas Murray makes this point. Um, he asks his friends, "Are you tolerant?" Uh, that's so funny. Somebody just says, like I just was looking at my notifications on Twitter. Jacob can be quite offensive, if you say so. I don't know why anybody would be offended by anything I ever said. Um,
I don't know if you're joking or there or not.
eh, I
You just said the thing about the people who are either
lying
liars
or
or
stupid.
stupid.
Um,
This is going to offend people, Jacob.
why? It's true. Um,
The truth will offend people to the point about a good leader, the good pope. He's going to offend people if he's a good pope.
exactly.
So, so
But
you are offensive, and you may be telling the truth, right?
um,
But I disagree with you on the. I think the guy I'm talking about. I will defend him and say he is both smart and he's not a liar.
look, you can also be very busy, but there's a point at which
He
you're
is very
lying to
busy as well.
yourself if you don't notice, oh, Joe Biden was not president for the last 4 years. Like, if you don't realize Joe
I,
Biden was not the president for the last
so,
4 years,
so,
I don't know what to tell you.
so here's the thing I was talking about in the tribalism. It's hyperactive threat detector with this irrational. That's irrational plus the irrationality of our connections and bonds to people. It then leads us to be overprotective, to be able to make irrational decisions. And so you can call that stupid, right? And yeah, I think you do. But that's what's happened is this very explainable tribalism, and it's the way God made us. This with hyperactive threat detectors, and where we make irrational decisions because of that hyperactive threat detector, and we form these bonds and we become loyal. How irrational is loyalty that we become loyal? Like, so you're seeing this loyalty and hyperactive threat detector play out, and they vote for Joe Biden because Trump is the snake, according to them. You know,
loyalty is rational. Loyalty is rational, and
it can be. It can be, and so can threat detection, but it can go wrong.
Okay, everything can go wrong.
Yeah, and I think it goes wrong very easily.
Yes.
Yeah.
But at some point you have to actually open it up to at some point you have to be like, I'm sorry, this is wrong. Like, and that's what I hope happened in this past election. And at some point, the Democrats are going to have to wake up.
Well, I think that I'll put it this way: there's a better leader than Trump in the world, but he might be the best leader for at this time, right? But the people aren't ready for the better leader than Trump. The better leader would not get elected right now. Is my point. It's the point that Jews make about Messiah.
Yeah.
Right. Messiah has been around. There's always been a Messiah ready, but the people haven't been ready for Messiah yet.
Right. And like, look, when I look at the Democrats, there is zero self-reflection. Zero self-reflection. Not one of them says, "Oh, why are we so bad that people vote for Donald Trump?"
I found the one. You know, I'm hoping you'll get to talk to him in voice chat soon. He's a very nice guy. I found him, Jacob. I found him. I have talked to. I told him. I said, because I've heard you say that we can't. We don't want the leader who wants to be the leader. He was saying the same thing. Kim says the same thing. I said, so you're telling me that once your kids are out of the house, I'm going to have to kidnap you and force you to be our leader. But I wrote down what he said. His ideas were, it'd be cool if we interviewed references for our candidates to really figure out their shortcomings and their strengths and everything. And he also said mandatory service, because it's like, well, mandatory service would be nice.
We do interview. I mean, that's why you send surrogates out. That's why you get political endorsements. Political endorsements are the number one most important thing in terms of like, that is references. So just the fact that he said that makes me doubt he's very knowledgeable about politics at all.
Okay. Yeah, we were basically, it was the context of the conversation was that I want, like, my approach to it was in the past had been, you know, if you want to be a candidate, you basically are opting into an amount of publicity and you're sacrificing privacy. And ideally, I would love to be able to sneak into the candidate's house and watch them have dinner with their family. And then you can really begin to see the real person. What are their shortcomings? What are their strengths? You know, and we don't get to see that because all you see is masks and this personas. And so the idea, so his response was like, the goal, like the question is, well, how do we actually know the real person that without the persona?
You know, I think that's 50% paying attention to the wrong thing, because it's because ultimately it's not like you're voting for one individual. People who imagine you are voting for an individual, like, they actually imagine that it's Donald Trump doing everything. It's like, no, like, look at Joe Biden, right? Like, he was literally not there, and the government still ran.
Yeah, I get it. I'll go back to hyperactive threat detectors and loyalty.
Mark says, if someone cheats on his wife but is a good politician who does right by his constituents, why does this matter? See, I was always very much I was so mad when Clinton was not convicted at his impeachment. I was really really mad. Not because so much because of the cheating, but because of the he straight out lied about it in court, like perjury, and it was with a White House intern. Like that's sexual harassment. Um, yeah, but um, like that the fact that the Democrats have the chutzpah to point out that Donald Trump also cheats is like f you, just f you.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're a smart guy, Jacob. I
I
think
doubt
they'll.
it.
Huh?
I doubt it.
I thought you said I nailed it, and I was like, you are the Hebrew hammer. You know, what do you do with a hammer? You know, you're either building things or breaking things. What are you going to do with it? I will ping my friend and share a link that say we talked a little bit about you, and then so he gets a warm welcome from Jacob. I'm also going to point him at other Discord servers as well. I just happened to be a moderator on yours, so I was able to give him a role so that he could join voice chat.
Oh, Luke had a live stream going? I'm sorry, I didn't realize he had a live stream going.
I didn't either. He's back, I guess. He's back.
It's all Vanderklay's fault. Everything is Vanderklay's fault. Paul, why do you have offensive people like me around? Huh, Paul?
Yeah, Paul. Why do you keep coming back over here when he has named you and rebuked you for not taking up the mantle of leadership in the proper way?
Yes.
Maybe you both have different ideas about the proper way to lead. Oh man. Me and Mark got to talk about what is a troll. And it's like there's a part of me that reads that and it's like, is that what he's doing? Is he trolling? Like what is he doing right there? It's a and so part when you guys say the things it's like the thing he said there is like it will be offensive, right? It's like baked into it. And are trolls just offensive? You know, I think Mark's definition of troll is basically attention seeker, something like that.
There is a level of if you can't stand the heat, stay out of the kitchen. That is actually important.
Fair enough.
Yeah, like there just has to be a level of, and if you don't recognize that, it's like trying to have a nightclub without bouncers. If you want to go to a nightclub without bouncers, you are a stupid person.
Or you're a bouncer.
Well, I mean, if you're a bouncer and you want to go to a nightclub without bouncers, you're still a stupid person.
Yeah, you probably need a uniform. Have you been to a nightclub?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have uniforms, right? You haven't seen the bouncers with uniforms?
Not necessarily.
I've seen the ones that have shirts that basically marks them. They're usually at the door checking IDs and.
Yeah, they're checking IDs. They don't in Los Angeles. People who check IDs at the door rarely. Where I can't remember the last time at a club I saw. Like I don't go to clubs very often. I've been to.
Have you been there while someone is being bounced off the sidewalk?
I don't think I've actually seen that, but part of being a good bouncer is actually being
Avoiding that
threatening
situation.
enough.
Yeah.
Like you have to be scary, like Shadow is.
So I got raised by a bouncer. He actually he sent me a very nice message. And let's see. His name is Danny Skutak. He was a linebacker for Auburn University and had a lot of the tackles. He's a leaderboard on the leaderboard for tackles as a linebacker there. I told him about our miscarriage, and he said, even though I haven't come to see you and your family yet, I just want you to know that I love y'all and that I have watched in amazement the transformation you have made through the stages of your life thus far. You have evolved into a very special man, husband, and father. And even though my personality has been a bit outside the teachings of Jesus in defending oneself and fighting back, I sincerely hope that I had just a little bit of influence in the way you became the man you are today. I never had a son, so you are the closest thing I have to one. And I am so very proud of the man you have become. I love you and your family. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Happy Easter.
Wow,
And I,
that's an incredibly nice message.
yeah. And I'm like, even this message you're 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 presenting as a father, you know. An amazing father there. So I was raised by someone who he was the tough guy, you know.
Although I do have to say, just because Luke is here, that he obviously is misrepresenting Jesus, because it's like if your Jesus is a squish, you don't know Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus grabbed a whip of cords and went into the temple.
If
Like he
if
went,
your
he
if your
made a whip of cords and then went into the temple with it. Like,
if your Jesus is the type of person nobody would kill, you're talking about a very different Jesus than the Jesus of the Gospels.
yeah.
Goes back to that poem, if you have no enemies.
I started watching the first episode of The Chosen with my in-laws, and my father-in-law was kind of asking about the Jews. You know, these people dressed up in strange garb, and I had the chance to try and explain what maybe I've learned more with Joseph's help is that the Pharisees and the Gospels are basically like corrupted Jews that are being puppets of the Romans. They're not representative of all the Jews there. You know, these are
So
they're yeah.
yeah, I have to, like, this was my big contribution to Father Stephen's latest book, was and frankly it was something that I have arrived at myself, which is um every time, if I remember correctly, but I think I do, every time the Mishnah talks about Pharisees, the word Pharisee, Perushim, it's it's in a critical manner, right? Because they it means people who are set apart. Um, and so they're people who set themselves apart, and there are problems with that. At the same time, like, there like there's a reason why they are set apart, and i think we miss that when we make them a whole group, right? When it's not individuals.
Yeah. It's like a stereotype or a prejudice, and we can do this with groups of people in general. Kind of like when we say anyone who voted for Joe Biden is stupid and a liar.
No, but
Super a liar.
it's particular. I mean, this particular thing, it's like if you say politicians, you're creating a particular group,
Mhm.
right? It's not all people. It is.
But even within the group, which is the politicians, there will be some that are better or worse, or align more with your goals than, or align less with your goals, or are more like allies or more like enemies. You know,
Yeah, but who are you talking about?
right? Well, um, I guess to take it to the Pharisees of the New Testament of the Gospels is that there's an idea that there are there are good Jews there as well. You know, and I think that sometimes on a first reading, you might imagine that these Pharisees are some nasty critters, and that every that somehow it's a there's a lot of Jews who are like that or something.
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't see how you read the Gospels without like, and you leave out the part where, oh, the Jews wanted to make him king, or there were 5,000 people there, right? It's
Hmm.
like,
Yeah.
really?
Well, I think it might be some Dunning Kruger stuff, in that very smart people like yourself have a hard time understanding what it's like for those that us lesser beings who can't read and do reading comprehensions as well as you do. So
Yeah, I don't know what it's like to misread things ever.
I'm guessing that's a joke, but I'm also guessing that I mean, you probably have a high success rate. I don't know what you would score on reading comprehension, but you might do well, right?
Yeah, I didn't do that poorly on my LSATs. Yes. In fact,
I
I
was
did very well on my LSATs.
When I took my test, I got done and I said, the people who made these tests made mistakes. That's what I. That's how I took the test. Instead of it being that I made the mistake, it's obviously the people who made this test are dumb.
There are times when that is true.
But I would probably err in thinking it was, um, I was smarter than I thought I was, or I was not as smart as I thought I was. That's how I probably erred. But yeah, but I was convicted. Like, I knew those people who made this test are just dumb.
Yeah. Shadow, Paul really likes you.
Well, Paul in the comments, he's a different character in the comments in a live stream than he is when he pops up in the with his camera feed. It's like he has fun. Like, that's the practice field where you play, and once you have the video and voice, you don't get to play as much. So it's, you got to take it a little more seriously. It's slightly different rules. Well, is there anything else? Do we want to wrestle around politics anymore, Jacob? Like, what are you looking for in this political conversation you want to have?
I'm actually looking for someone to help me process. But like there's a lot going on, and but that requires like somebody who's actually been following what's been going on. Like that there is a real reason why recently Yoav being Yoav. There are many opinions in the TLC, but only one shadow. This is the Jordan Peterson sphere, Yoav. This is not. We're not TLC. We broke away from that part of the flotilla.
Am I in that we? Like, this we, you're naming things. Here we go.
You're streaming to my channel on my StreamYard, Gavin.
I'm also streaming to my channel as well on your StreamYard.
On my StreamYard, exactly.
There's I'm paid for by the Jordan Peterson sphere, I guess.
Exactly. So. You are underwritten by the Jordan Peterson sphere.
Oh no! Does that mean I co-sign everything?
It does.
No!
You,
in my subscriptions, though, I have Forbes breaking news, so I can tell you the Forbes breaking news on YouTube. Watch live. President Trump meet with Norwegian Prime Minister. Trump issues rare criticism of Putin. Trump's. I really enjoyed when they have the raw footage of just where they're not editing it down. It's this. That's actually a pretty cool YouTube channel, in my opinion. They tend not to have so many opinions. They're just recording. I like it.
But look, there are an infinite number of facts. Which facts you decide to pay attention to? Like, there. The fact is that the Trump administration has been playing the attention game really, really well.
I'd like to. I could tell you a little bit about. I could talk a little bit about Elon Musk. I listened to him and Joe Rogan. It's like
When?
maybe it was a month ago.
Yeah, like that's a month ago.
No, well, the thing that what really was interesting to me is the idea that he had to actually he had the self awareness to know that he had to not fight the corruption too much so that they wouldn't murder him.
I would not believe everything Elon Musk says, and that is one of the types of statements where it was just a little too convenient.
Fair enough. I perceive the people that are participating in government as basically the threat of the being able to put food on their table there was a threat there, and they have the power to be able to kill people and have killed people. So like that's how I perceive people in the federal government. So now I might be wrong, right?
There's a lot less murder than the internet imagines. I wouldn't say there's zero murder,
Right.
but there's a lot less murder than the internet imagines. There's a lot more cowardice, and there's also a lot more people pretending like.
Well, if you have people being somehow encouraged to try and murder and to try and like destroy property and like I guess Tesla vehicles, like that's kind of scary. If you were I wouldn't want to be Elon Musk right now, honestly. I wanted to be Elon Musk, like, and I applied for the job he had before it became a real thing. Like I really did. I could go find my job applications for the previous administrations. We've talked about this. You said there's a book of people, and I'm not in that book, right? But I'm glad I don't have that job. Honestly.
Yeah, so when I read Josh Shapiro's tweet, Josh Shapiro is the governor of Pennsylvania. I just could not imagine Passover night, and then the pictures were absolutely horrifying. Yeah, it was only a room that burnt down, but it was a room in which they had that night had a whatchamacallit, a Passover Seder.
Mm-hmm.
And like he wrote, yeah, at 2 a.m., the police woke him and his family up to get them out of the governor's mansion because there was a fire that someone had, and the pictures are horrific. If you have not seen the pictures, and that's the thing, like the Democrats are not talking about it. Like so many people I talk to have not heard of that firebombing. And 100% that if it had been somebody on the right making an obviously like an anti-Semitic attack, which is what that was, right? It would have been all over the news. Everyone would still be talking about it.
It's only a hate crime if it's against your allies.
Apparently. Well, but
this is the loyalty, threat detector, tribalism, irrationality stuff that happens.
But that's the thing. It's been very recent where Republicans are actually even willing to call out hate crimes against themselves.
Hmm.
Like,
Well, it's a crime, and
it,
usually crime involves hate. You could just call it crime, probably, right?
that was the Republican talking point.
Right.
Like there, I mean, it is Saul Alinsky tactics to hold your to call your enemies hypocrites, but Jesus did that.
Name calling. The name calling. I like that idea of naming the behaviors themselves. Like, eating with your family around the table, good behavior. Preparing an individual meal for each person so they can eat in isolation by themselves, bad behavior. Like the behaviors themselves would be nice to point out. Firebombing someone's house, whew, bad behavior.
Colonymous, it's maliciousness and psychopathic. Doesn't seem to have anything to do with loyalty, in my opinion.
So I like to get down to the things that are instinctual and subconscious, kind of like when a snake attacks your foot and you pull that foot back. There's things in us that we really don't control, and they happen. And when I say loyalty, I'm talking about the thing that is instinctual and subconscious in which we form bonds with people and want to protect them. It's irrational.
I'm not sure it is.
I mean, I've got stories of people picking fights and wanting to fight and defend people, and it's like, hold up, hold up. I'm friends with this guy, but I'm not ready to fight about this.
I look, that doesn't.
They expect me. They'll call me a coward. It's like, you're a coward. Like, hold up, I've got a brain here. Hold up, let's use it.
Sometimes if the answer is always I will not fight, then you're not using your brain.
When I fight, I'm not using my brain, and I've done it, and I've done it well.
That's not true.
I mean, so in high school, I mentioned it. There's a kid obsessed with wrestling. Hey, I saw him pick up my brother and drop him on his head, and I heard my brother's neck crack, and I was worried he was like, I responded, and I ran over and I grabbed him and I wrapped him around, threw him down to the ground, and locked his legs and his arms behind his back, and he's frothing at the mouth, like he's just going wild, and there's just hundreds of people watching.
Okay.
There was no thinking. I just did it. I just acted.
Okay. But that just means one part of your brain may not have been thinking. But I guarantee
there was no plan. I had no plan at all.
Right, but that's like, it's not like your instincts are not part of you and your thinking. This is like the whole McGilchrist.
When you stick your hand in a fire, like your instinct, like when you burn your hand, when you get shocked, you won't even like.
And it's rational,
but it's not even connected
your
to your
hand
brain.
out.
But it's not even connected to your brain.
No,
like,
that's not true. It's not connected. I guarantee you, if you shoot a person in the head, they will no longer remove their hand from the fire.
Have you ever cut the head off of a snake? Have you never encountered a snake without a head?
I have not, but first of all, you have to realize human beings function very differently from we are far less instinctual than other animals.
This might be something that you could look into about like the muscle responses and where they originate in our bodies.
There is no muscle response which helped you grab another human being. That was not an automatic muscle response. You saw that human being and you grabbing is the most intellectual thing a human. can do. Like AI, like that was a major like thing for AI, is picking something up.
No. There's different states of mind, and there's a
Right.
state of mind where I'm not planning.
Right. It's a right brain as opposed to a left brain reaction, in McGilchrist's terms. But half of your brain is the right hemisphere of your brain, and you discount that at your peril.
Sometimes to plan is to make a mistake.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm pointing at. Is sometimes I use these words. We mean different things by the words, but there's a real experience there that was unique, and I'm trying to
I
point it
hear
out.
you, but I think using the word irrational, you're falling into something which I I would recommend you reconsider.
Okay. Yeah, but for me, rationality has everything to do with using the mind to iterate over thoughts and possibilities, doing a search algorithms and pathing algorithms in your mind, right? That's and intentionally,
That's propositional tyranny.
and sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's not good.
Uh, I have been hitting on this for a while now, and maybe I'm not saying it correctly. Like I haven't formulated it in a way that people really resonate with, but things become idols because they're valuable. And if your reaction to idols is to destroy them, you are destroying something valuable. And if you don't recognize at the very least that you're destroying something valuable, like there's something wrong there. Something Things become idols because they are valuable, which idols are bad. I
I'm
like
talking about like a hierarchy,
no.
as
I'm,
far as
I'm
like an order. Like there's an idol would just be the like it is bad when it's not when its importance is too high. Like it needs less importance
when it's
relatively.
correct, when it's been elevated to a status that it does not deserve and should not have,
Right.
right?
Right.
That's when it becomes an idol. And you need to possibly bring it down from its idol status. But if you just go around destroying all the idols, you will destroy the world.
Right. Well said. Some people won't get it though.
I mean, I've been trying to formulate it better than that. I haven't found a better formulation.
I think some of these things I guess, there's things we learn as we make mistakes, especially as dumb, non-wise people, and then or smart, non-wise people, and our intelligence has something to do with how many times we have to repeat the mistakes until we learn. But uh, I can't go and just feed everything I've learned to my children and have them just absorb it and know it. And so it might be good if I somehow could socially engineer scenarios such that they would learn these things the way that the way that uh, is best for them to learn it. So it's hard to just it's impossible to just lay out your propositions for all people to just be able to digest and gain your wisdom.
And what makes you think all of your propositions are wisdom?
Yeah, good point.
The,
But some of them are.
there is a reptilian part of your brain, and it is on both sides uh, of your brain, but it's still part of your brain. I think limiting thinking to just that which we paid attention to is just a mistake. Limiting the word thinking, and I realize I understand what people mean when they say that. I just think
I think so the point I was making is that there are these things that happen automatically, very automatically within us. And they are things connected to what I had called loyalty and hyperactive threat detector. You know, and these things can get out of whack. You know, they can, you all of a sudden can have a large amount of stress and anxiety in situations where you see snakes, but there's no snake there, you know, or whether it's a snake that you see that's threatening your tribe, or it's a snake you perceive.
But what about not seeing enough of a threat? Like, is that also a problem?
Oh yeah. There is something that happens automatically too, though. Like I was watching the David Blaine video, and where he had the camera on a guy who's messing with these snakes, and it's like, part of me is like, could I do that? You know, and it's like, there has to be a trust. I'm just trying to imagine, how would I interact with this deadly snake in a way, in the same way that this person is, and there's something in the trust of the automatic system and being finely tuned to handle the predator or the threat, so that you have success for years and years and years and don't die. Like, it was fascinating to me watching this. And so, like, yeah, if you just close your eyes, it's terrible. You're gonna get bit. So you got to have your eyes open. You got to be in the right state. You know, you got to make sure that you have you have the information being received by this amazing thing that can respond. There's some kind of a trust in this thing that can respond. You don't want to get burdened by your planning brain, or you don't want to see a snake come and attack you before or after it actually attacked you.
Gavin, but I mean, so there is also an instinct to freeze.
Mm-hmm.
That's also instinctual.
And then you freeze, and adrenaline's pumping, and you're becoming prepared to do the jump, you know, or the whatever.
Well, I think I mean, some people are more programmed to
it's not a freeze and close your eyes, though.
It is. For some people, it is. There are definitely people who freeze and close their eyes.
I'm saying,
there are
for
people
me,
who do not see a threat because they don't want to see it.
And I would just call this mistake, right? You can freeze, but try to use your eyes and your ears and everything you can to receive the relevant information. Don't close your eyes and ears, and that would be my recommendation.
Have you never seen a child like close its eyes and imagine?
I've been the child who made this mistake.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been this child.
Okay. Like, people do that.
And I got hurt
quite a bit.
And I got hurt many times doing it. And that's how I'm going off. I'm saying, like, when I did that, it was a mistake. When I did it, it was like, it never was successful for me.
If something is always, like, every rule has exceptions. That's the difficulty of life. Every rule has exceptions, and no strategy is the best strategy in every situation. And I just think people fight against that way too much. There is no perfect solution. If your perfect solution is never offend anyone, right? Then you, like, if that's
a mistake, though.
That's a mistake.
Yeah.
If you will never fight, if you will never whatever, right? And that's what Proverbs 2, I believe it's Proverbs 2, for everything there is a season. There's a time to kill.
Is it Ecclesiastes?
Oh, maybe it's Ecclesiastes too. Yeah. For everything there is a season.
Yeah, but and to to know that it's still like the exception and the rule kind of thing. There's still good rules of thumb, um, and then
100%.
and maybe the child behaves different than the father, right?
Goes back to 1 Corinthians 12.
We have a guest.
Ethan,
How are the
Hello.
both of you?
good. How are things in Alaska?
Good. I started listening to the two of you when, well, you started doing politics, and then it sounds like we went into neuroscience.
They're connected.
We do that. We jump around a lot.
I mean, I don't think you should talk politics without talking about neuroscience.
Well, that's probably true.
Yeah, you need to get into psychology and sociology and praxeology. I think people don't look at praxeology enough, and it makes me miss Ginger Bill because I learned the word from him.
I think I know what that word means, but I'm going to look it up. In philosophy, praxeology is the theory of human action based on the notion that humans engage in purposeful behavior contrary to reflexive behavior and other unintentional behavior. Ginger Bill is a very smart guy. It's been a long time since I've spoken to him.
Yeah, I actually went to his YouTube channel and started looking for his email address the other day. But people want to talk about theology, philosophy, poetry, and I'm like, where's the praxeology? Not enough praxeology.
I'm not sure about that. Ethan, what do you want to talk about?
Can you put a well, no, I was just jumping in to say hi to you guys and join what you guys were talking about, if that's allowed. If I'm interrupting, then I'll leave.
I actually need you to talk to Jacob while I go pee.
Too much information,
Okay.
Gavin. Too much information.
What do you
Go ahead,
want to
Ethan.
talk about?
No,
I said, what do you want to talk about, Jacob?
I would like to talk about current events with people, but like only if people like I've been looking for somebody who's actually been paying a lot of attention to politics and current events to actually discuss their ideas more so than just my ideas. How'd your game show go?
Good, I think. Yeah.
Is it online?
Yeah, it's on my
uploaded it?
YouTube channel. Yeah. I mean, everything I do, I'm starting everything on Substack first, and I'm in process of turning all of my Substacks into YouTubes because people are on YouTube. So then, whatever I write takes kind of a different shape or form when it becomes a film. So once I get caught up, I have maybe 5, 6, 7 more things to turn into little films. And then I can get back to like writing and then get in a rhythm of write, edit, film, edit, write, edit, film, edit. And then occasionally say hi to people in live streams, which I'm probably doing too much of right now.
I don't know about too much of, but I found your video.
Borderline. I'm feeling sucked into the internet. And I'm feeling the pull. And I always get, whenever I start to feel the pull of a thing, I go, oh, I don't know about this.
There is Ethan's video. I put a link in the chat.
Neither your question, nor Gavin's question, nor Gavin's wife's question was pulled yet. So they're still in the pool, and at some point they will be pulled.
Pull from the pool.
But T. Grogan's question was pulled, and that was really interesting. That was one of my favorite question
What was
polls.
his question? Or do I have to watch the video to find out?
Wait, sorry. I don't know if I'm cutting out. It's probably my Wi-Fi.
I
Did you
think
say
it
what
is.
did T. Grogan ask?
Yeah.
T. Grogan said, "What are 3 things you hate about religion or your religion?" So the first stranger was a kid named Henry, 24 years old, comes from like Southern evangelicalism. So he sat there and thought about what 3 things were. And then I asked a follow-up. I go, okay, so you can name 3 things you hate about your religion. Like, why do you still practice it? And I thought that was interesting to hear someone answer that question as well.
Yeah, I'm wondering, like, when you answer that question, like, I could name 3 things. Well, I have difficulty naming 3 things I hate just in general, but I'm just wondering, if those are 3 things you hate, are they 3 things you hate that are part of your religion, that are specific to your religion, or you understand what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, so rule 1, there's 4 rules of the game show. Rule 1 is the stranger must submit to the question, not to the host. So like you have to determine the meaning of the question for yourself. So I read a question, but like I didn't ask this question, so it's not my question. I can't tell you what T. Grogan meant. I mean, you have to determine what does this question means and how do I provide an answer.
3 things I hate about my religion. Yeah, I can't really think of
Can I
3 things.
pull out the lightsaber and say, "What do you mean by the word religion?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Religion.
Yeah, you can. You can. I mean, yeah. That's a great answer, right?
Yeah.
And it's also a good answer to be like, I can't think of anything. If that's honest, then that's a good answer.
Who said I was in a religion? I'm in the truth, the life, and the way, baby. It's not religion.
Gavin, are you a political person?
When my neighbors are, I get involved. If they want to talk politics, I talk politics. So I've developed a lot of opinions over the years. So I like to listen to people and ask questions and say what abouts.
Because Jacob, like part of your Twitter or your X is, I mean, politics on the front page of that. So you see politics as very like important. I don't know about central to your identity, but like important to life, to living a good life.
So, I mean, Paul Vanderklay says politics is now, religion is always, which curiously to a lot of people means politics is like worthless, not important, which is like, hold on, you're telling me now is not important? Or people say you don't, therefore you shouldn't mix your religion with politics. And it's like, well, if religion is always, then it's also in politics. Now, that doesn't mean politics should be the only thing or the most important thing, any more than, like, if eating is the most important thing in your life, if all you do is eat, like there's something wrong there. But if you don't eat every day, there's also something wrong there. And I don't know if politics, I don't think politics needs to be every day, but if it's none of the days, then there's something wrong there. And th-
I had
that,
a,
yeah.
I got a little political the other day, but nobody really picked up on it. But I heard that there's some trial about books for children, and I had the thought. I went to Claude and I said, Claude, write a book. Here's my view on how welfare can be done, how it can be helpful, and when it goes wrong, and how parents can use it in ways that are good and ways that are wrong. Write a book that encourages children to understand what's good and bad and right and wrong with regard to how a good parent should be using a welfare system, with the idea that this book might end up in the hands of someone who doesn't have such great parents. And then and so Claude wrote a book for me, and then I shared a link to that in 3 or 4 Discord servers, and maybe was hoping to inspire people to go write books, just like I want to use the weapons of the people I disagree with. Why don't we just use the same weapon and write books to undermine the culture that we see as wrong? So that's politics in action, praxeology.
Well, I think beauty wins. Like if you want to like get people to buy a book, it's got to be more beautiful than whatever else they're about to purchase.
Maybe. I don't know. I maybe disagree actually. That sometimes you're in a public school and all of a sudden you're using a certain browser, you got certain books that you're getting handed, and you're using a certain operating system. And I didn't get a chance to learn how to use these other things, but it got, Bill Gates, he benefited by the ways of the public school system. And was it beautiful? Were there other options? So I would like it to be that way, but I don't think that we're not doing tests to figure out what's going to be the best, beautiful, truest material to hand off to a student that's going to make the whole world a better place. We're not very good at that.
Is that the school's job or the family's job?
Well, we don't have good families.
I mean, in practice, it is the school's job. We pretend that it's the family's job, but in practice, what actually happens is that it's the school that does it.
Well, Jacob, I'm gonna hop off. Go to another meeting. I very much enjoyed it. It was a pleasure to see you, Ethan. I wish I could hang around and talk all day, honestly. But
well, yeah, you and me both, mate. It's good to see you, Gavin.
Hey, Jacob, when you end, just make sure you end stream. All right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you want me? I mean, I can take your channel off. You're not going to be on it.
Yeah, you're welcome to stream somewhere else or anything. All right.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
I am going to take his channel off. We are no longer streaming to Gavin's channel.
We are no longer right in Christ. Is that what you're saying?
Apparently, yeah. Apparently,
isn't that his channel name?
Is it? I think
maybe that's his Twitter handle.
I think it may be. Yeah, I think it is his channel. That's new though. That's only been for a year, maybe at most. Yeah.
What's your plan right now?
Well, I mean, I would like to go back to bed, but not going to happen. I have stuff I should be doing. Probably not going to do that. So I'll putz around with you. What about you?
Okay, let's set a time on it because I also have things I need to go do. So let's pick a time, and then at least I can be noble and get off and go do the thing that I'm supposed to do.
Okay. When's the time?
all I'm asking you, this is your channel. You're the authority here. I'm just here to pester you.
I mean, if we have stuff to talk about, I'm willing to talk for a while. I usually, with the just chatting, I mean, this is kind of a just chatting stream. With the just chatting stuff, I usually go with the flow. It depends on whether there are things to talk about or not, whether people are interested. There aren't that many people watching. There's like 10 people watching.
Okay, well, let's do politics since nobody's here.
Sure. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, okay, so I've never federally voted.
Oh, right. So there is that. The Bible study on my channel is in less than an hour.
Yeah, so 30 minutes, and then I need to go to the gym.
Okay.
Like I've never federally voted. I could never. I almost did this last time. I got really close. If I had been in the state that I have residence in, I probably would have.
Mhm.
But I see a lot of value on both sides of the political aisles.
Mhm.
I rarely can be like, oh, this whole package you're selling, I want to purchase that package. And I will absolutely submit to, well, you're being young and naive and you have to, you know, what's the phrase? Shit or get off the pot. You can't fence sit. So I'm not trying to pretend like I'm not fence sitting. I'm very well aware of the fence post I'm on top of.
Well, I mean, part of it is you have to realize when it comes down to it, it's not like any of us, our individual votes actually matter, right? Like if you don't vote, like that's a grain of sand. And it's that problem of uh, how many grains of sand before you have a heap, right? And so it's a lot more important how you help others make sense of things than how you actually vote, because ultimately um, certain people definitely vote, and your relationship with the people who do vote, like this is the thing that actually bothers me the most, is there are very sensible people who will educate themselves about the issues, and then they will imagine that if they just go vote without discussing with other people what their decision is, that that's actually having a meaningful impact. It's like,
Yeah.
you're missing it.
Well, and I think the thing that interests me right now, and I'm sure I would imagine you have lots of opinions on this, from what I can tell on the right, there's new alliance lines being drawn, and it feels like I mean, when the left had the progressives that came out, and now we have liberals and we have progressives. It feels like that's happening on the right to a degree, because it's like, well, who's gonna run this? And then it's like, well, what is MAGA gonna be? Because I mean, MAGA is Trump, so what is MAGA after Trump? And then there's all kinds of I mean, dark anti-Semitism that's rising up in, I wouldn't say surprising places, because it's not that surprising. And then I feel like people, I mean, that I feel like is everything is to me, it's like I feel everything is circling this anti-Semitism question. And I don't know if that's, true, if that's just the sphere of politics that I'm in the middle of, where I'm seeing it everywhere.
So there really is something to to the idea that the Jews are the canary in the coal mine in at least Western society, right? When things are falling apart, like it never fails, right? You look at a society that you look at the societies that have been good to the Jews. They were doing well. You look at the societies that were like scapegoating the Jews, and they have done very poorly. Like I think you can actually look through the history of, at the very least, Europe, and like clearly see that. And I think it really does have a lot to do with the fact that we're tiny, right? Like
Mhm.
I often ask people, okay, what percentage of the world population do you think is Jewish? Um, I'm guessing you're much better educated than most people, but what do you think the percentage is?
The world's population.
Yeah,
I mean, the landmass of Israel isn't that big. I mean, there's a diaspora that's in lots of places, but it's. I mean, I don't know. I guess I would guess the world population between 1 to 3%.
that's much better than most people guess. It's less than 1/4 of 1%.
Look up.
Yeah. And that's, you know, but so there's about 8 billion people on Earth. There are 1% would be 80 million, sorry. Um, there are about 15 million Jews, the most broad way you could call it, in the world. We are very visible, that's for sure. But there's not a lot of us. And so when the focus becomes on the Jews, usually it's just an indicator of other problems. And
Scapegoat.
I think we really do have a lot of problems right now, and people just aren't paying attention to them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Because okay, I mean, I guess like if I speak poorly, I do apologize, but I feel like it's like having this conversation is like there's just landmines everywhere, and I know that I might have a leg blown off, um, but I don't know how else to like. It's either like not speak or be willing to step on a landmine.
Correct.
But like, because in my understanding, like, okay, so as someone who goes like, yeah, Jesus is my rabbi, I follow Jesus. Um, so much of this stems from the death of Jesus. Um, but then there's this other thing that even, I mean, let's go further back to like Old Testament, to where if God is real, if the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is real, and if he gave his law to a family, and if this family continued and became a nation, and if they continued to follow this law, and if this law was the kind of law that matched reality, so that if you lived in a certain way, you were moving with reality, then you would well, what's like you would increase blessing as you followed the law, something like that. And so like it shouldn't be surprising that there's a group of people who follow a specific law and experience blessing despite any circumstance.
I
Because
mean, I think you would be very hard pressed to say that the history of the Jewish people has been us following the law and being blessed by it.
Okay.
Like,
yeah, it's fair.
yeah. The facts, I mean, and what it means to actually know the law, what it is, and actually follow it, it's a lot harder, I think, than people recognize. And the because, and this goes into the whole Jew and Gentile thing, like, is a Gentile who keeps the Sabbath keeping the law or breaking the law?
Mm.
And generally, most people, their first impression would be they're keeping it. Whereas I would say that is false and they're actually breaking it. Because if it doesn't apply to you, when you apply things to yourself which don't apply to you, you are in fact breaking the law, right? And I mean, it really goes back. We've been talking about 1 Corinthians 12 a lot today. Gavin actually read it earlier today. I hate to keep blaming Protestantism for it, but
we deserve more blame than we get. So it's about time that we get some blame.
And just to be clear, for the billionth time, when we complain about Protestantism today, what we are complaining about is not all of the good things in it, which were adopted generally and has become part of at least American culture, but I would say culture worldwide. The Protestant Reformation has had good effects and helped to reform a lot of things, including the Catholic Church, right? But when we talk about Protestantism today, we talk about the things that are uniquely Protestant. And the one thing that is most uniquely Protestant is a rebellion against hierarchy. And that has been the discussion since Jordan Peterson first came on board. Like the whole lobster thing, right? There's my lobster. The whole lobster thing comes from hierarchy and the fact that hierarchy is older than trees.
Yeah.
And the ultimate Protestant move, which is the problem, is a rebellion against hierarchy.
Yes, because it turns into, if there's a hierarchy, I'm going to rebel against it.
Yeah, and so everyone has to be the exact same. Everything has to be the exact same, right? The idea that one law would apply to the Jew and a different law would apply to the Gentile. Now, there's actually a verse in the Bible which says there shall be one law for everyone, Jew or Gentile, right? At the same time, that doesn't mean that it's fair. I always go back to this. So the verse in Galatians that I think has caused so much problems in the world is there is no Jew or Gentile, man or woman, free or slave in Christ Jesus.
Scythian or Greek? I think that's
I think that's why we're in where we are about, like, why the most popular documentary of last year was What is a Woman? right? Because we have come to this place where there is no male or female in Christ Jesus. And I think that is God blowing up this idea that there is no Jew or Gentile, male or female, slave or free. I absolutely affirm the idea that every single human being is made in the image of God, and God does not play favorites with anyone. This is something the Bible says over and over again. God does not play favorites. At the same time, like and holding that contradiction, that nuance of if you put your right shoe on your left hand, you're doing something wrong. If you treat your daughter exactly the same way as you treat your son, you're doing something wrong. If you love all of your kids, that means you love each individual as themselves, not exactly the same, right? If you have a special needs kid, spending the exact same amount of time on your special needs kid as your not special needs kid, that's not you loving them fairly.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think that's become a huge problem. And so when you talk about keeping the law and like I do believe in the Bible, and I do believe that Judaism, like I mean, I do believe that Israel is God's chosen people. But if you think that means we believe we are elect in the Protestant in the Calvinist sense of elect, you are completely missing the boat. Completely missing the boat. Right? We are chosen the way you choose a particular horse to ride out of a stable. Right? And so I think if you're looking at human history and you don't see there's something different about the Jews, I think you're not paying attention. You should start paying attention.
Well, that's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. At this point we have no disagreement.
Okay.
Because I don't come from a Calvinist background, and I think the way you defined elect, to the best of my understanding, I think it's far more like, well, you said like a horse to ride on, which is kind of funny, but it's also like a really good like physical metaphor. So my question is, and we had X DM'd about this just a little bit. So it's like, because the other thing that's happened in the same period as this Protestant Reformation is like postmodernism and the reaction to the Enlightenment and to reason. And so then you have, again, I'll probably use the words wrong, but like a deep subjectivism, a deep relativism. And I mean, I played in a relative space for a long time, and I'm at a point where I go, no, I don't think relativism is gonna take me where I need to go. So then it becomes like, okay, well, then how do I instantiate a hierarchy on my life? What hierarchy do I put myself under? And it was interesting, I think it was a couple months ago when I was talking to Hezi. I got to learn how to do that, the vocal pronunciation.
You can just call him Hezi. That's fine.
Because then he was talking about Noahide, and I was like, I've never heard of this. My understanding that comes from Rambam, which is like a nickname for Maimonides, I think.
It doesn't come from him. It's already in the Talmud, and frankly, it's in the Book of Jubilees, which is in some Christian Bibles, but curiously enough, not in Jewish Bibles, and therefore not in the Protestant Bible. So it is a concept that is definitely older than Christianity, which surprises a lot of people. But it is something that is described in the Rambam or Maimonides. Either way of calling him is fine. And so when I think it's the Book of Acts talks about the God-fearers, that's what that is. Like a Noahide is the God-fearers from the Book of Acts.
Well, in the Old Testament, weren't there, I don't know about often, but at least a few instances of Gentile groups that were living in the land of Israel and had some kind of special status?
Well, that's different. Okay,
Okay.
so there were always Gentiles involved, and there are definitely a lot of Gentiles in the Hebrew Bible, despite the fact most people gloss over that. There are definitely a lot of Gentiles in the Hebrew Bible, including very righteous. I mean, so Isaiah refers to Cyrus as the Messiah of God, Mashiach Havaya, right?
Yeah.
And like, so such people have always existed. And we would refer to them as God-fearers. And there are verses, for example, in Psalms, which refer to the Yireh Hashem, right? The fears of God, right? And I think it's pretty clear that is at least including, if not specifically referring to, these Noahides or Gentiles. The problem that Christians have is there are definitely verses in Paul and I think also in the Gospels which imply that there's something special about Christianity which has changed things so that Gentiles now have access. And there are people like I think Father Stephen understands it very differently than how a lot of Protestants understand it, which is, but the general Protestant understanding is, I may be wrong, but that's my understanding of the Protestant understanding, which is that Jesus came and tore down some sort of veil that prevented Gentiles from participating with the God of Israel, in the religion in some special way. And I would say that's completely untrue. If that is your interpretation, I'm fine with that being your interpretation of what Paul and the Gospels say. But if that is what they say, it's just displaying an obvious ignorance of what the actual Bible, the Hebrew Bible, does say, which is, since the very beginning, right? Like Isaiah says, my house shall be called a house of prayer for all the nations. Like that's not something new. And if you think that's something new that Jews don't realize now and didn't realize 2,000 years ago, then you imagine we didn't read our Bible at all, which is kind of offensive.
I mean, I just learned, I think it was this past month, that there's maybe like 4 instances in the Old Testament of like the Holy Spirit. I was like, huh, I didn't realize that phrase or term was in the Old Testament.
Ruach definitely shows up more than that. Like,
But
I
like
think
Kadesh Ruach,
Ruach HaKodesh
HaKodesh.
specifically, yeah,
I think there were 4 that I saw.
could be. You know what? We can find out.
This is a fact, and it has an answer.
This is a fact, and
Well,
it
like this
does
might be a fact. What I mean.
have an answer. Let's see. Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach. And then I'll leave the definite out. Ruach Kodesh. In don't see Ruach. Look at show. Psalm 51:13. V'ruach kodshecha, your Holy Spirit. Isaiah 63:11. And his Holy Spirit. Isaiah 63:10. His Holy Spirit. Daniel 4:6. Ruach Elakin Kadishin Bach. Very interesting. This is in Aramaic. It's not in Hebrew. Same thing with Daniel 4:15. Ruach Elakin Kachin Bach. Again in Daniel 5:11 and 4:5. Unless their search engine missed something, that's all of them. But
Well, and so then I'm going like, I mean, I don't know what that means, but my assumption is that when Jesus is talking about the Holy Spirit, and that's written down in Greek, that he's referring to whatever the Old Testament is talking about.
I would agree with that, but Trinitarians have a very different understanding of that.
Well, I didn't claim to be a Trinitarian.
I'm glad you didn't claim to be a Trinitarian.
I'm gonna get in trouble for this one.
I
also
very
don't
much
claim to be a
approve.
Unitarian.
What?
I also don't claim to be a Unitarian. Sorry for talking over you.
Do you claim to be a Binitarian?
Well, what is that?
Very few people claim to be a Binitarian, but when you look at the early church, before there was Trinitarianism, there's a very strong argument, which I believe is true, which is that the early fathers, such as Justin Martyr, were Binitarians.
Is this the 2 powers in heaven?
Yeah.
No, I don't claim that. I'm curious about the divine council. Which
Michael
I
Heiser.
know. Yeah, I'm curious about Heiser's work. And I don't feel like I'm through the other side of any of this to be able to be like, this is my stance on this. I have a lot of questions. And I don't feel like I can ask the questions I need to ask if I claim a position. Because then I feel like I'm going to read everything through the lens of whatever position I claim.
Pajot asks quite helpfully, where do you think you're standing when you're observing things objectively? And I do think there is some level of it's very hard to completely come at something from this God's eye view.
Yeah.
But I do believe there is utility in trying as best you can to have that sort of God's eye view.
Yeah, I mean, I do not claim an objective position. I mean, I claim to be Ethan Marshall Kahi, and I am a subject. I mean, the where I'm standing is at 33 years old and through all of my life experiences. Like, I don't know. I mean, it just is subjective. Like, I don't think I can look any other way than being a subject. So okay, let me ask you a question then, because the Shema, the verse after the Shema says something like, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength.
It's very difficult to actually translate that last term, me'odecha, which makes the entire verse kind of difficult to translate. But
Well,
yes.
that's what I'm curious about. Because I'm curious if there's like, you say like God is one. I go, yes. And then there is this kind of response where like the human being is supposed to love God in three ways. But I can't read in the original language, so I don't understand what it's precisely what it's saying.
Funny enough, I have never heard a Trinitarian argument out of that, because if I remember correctly, and I think I do, when Jesus is quoted as quoting it in the Greek, he actually uses four terms to translate it. Let me check. Mark 12.
I gotta plug my phone in. Give me 1 sec.
I will give you 2 secs. So Mark 12. Marriage, the greatest commandment. Yeah, so 12:30. Here, let's pull up the Greek. 12:30. Yeah, so this is Mark 12:30, and you shall love the Lord God of you with all the heart, tes cardios of you, Sue, and with all the soul, psyches of you, and with all the mind, dianoios of you, and with all the strength, iskios, Sue. I hope the Greeks will forgive me for my pronunciation there. So he actually uses four terms, which is understandable, because the word ma'od, here, let's look at Deuteronomy 6:5. Deuteronomy 6 and 5. Right? So it says, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your levavcha, and that's already kind of complicated, because there's two ways you can write the word heart in Hebrew, lev or lavav. That's already one thing. Uvachol nafshecha, and nefesh usually gets translated as soul.
Means throat.
I think nefesh actually has like a connotation of wind. I mean, we can look here. Soul, life, self, person, heart, creature, mind, living being, a breathing creature, animal of vitality, derived from an unused root meaning to breathe. The Hebrew word nephesh is a multifaceted term that appears frequently in the Old Testament. It's often translated as soul or life, but its usage extends to denote the essence of a person, their inner being or life force. It can refer to the physical life of a creature, the emotional and spiritual aspects of a person, or the entirety of a living being. In some contexts, nephesh is used to describe desires, appetites, and emotions, reflecting the holistic view of human nature in Hebrew thought. In Jewish mysticism, nephesh is considered the most basic and lowest aspect of the soul, the most physical. In fact, the mystics would say that when you die, the nephesh part of your soul stays with the body and does not depart. But the really hard thing is this word me'odecha, which here they're translating as strength, which may be what Jesus is splitting into two in the translation, because me'od literally means very.
Very, like with a V.
Yeah. As in, when in Genesis it says, yeah, so here, definition: very, exceedingly, much, greatly, vehemence, vehemently, wholly, speedily. So in Genesis, where it says, Vehine tov me'od, it was very good, right?
Oh.
Yeah. Or Veyichar lekayin me'od, right? He became very angry. Usually, me'od gets translated as very. Very.
Yeah.
And so it's a pretty difficult word to translate, which kind of explains why it gets variously translated. There's actually a Mishnah which has various rabbis discussing what exactly me'od in this verse means.
Yeah.
But it's not an easy thing to translate.
Yeah. Okay. So all my cards on the table then. So like the my best interpretation, which is again like this would be the place I am standing. However, I am actively trying to construct, deconstruct, make it as strong as it can be before I be like, this is my position. Is like the human being is a spirit, one spirit composed of a body, a mind, soul. There's like a tripartite structure to the human being's oneness.
Sure. I mean, we were actually talking earlier today about the three, like in Jewish mysticism, what we refer to as the three faculties of the soul, because the Bible talks about three forms of circumcision of the heart, circumcision of the lips, and physical circumcision, right?
Yeah.
And like we would say that refers to the three faculties of the soul, which are thought, speech, and action, right? And it's always funny to me that like Christians sometimes, especially Trinitarians, like expect me to like avoid threes like the plague, as if it's not a perfectly usable number. There are plenty of things that come in threes, just like there are plenty of things that come in twos and fours, right? and three is a perfectly okay number, and there is that threefold aspect which you could you could do b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha, right? So with your heart, meaning mind, meaning thoughts, your nefesh, meaning soul, meaning spirit, meaning speech, and me'od, you can refer to physical action.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, and so it's like that's why I go like, well, I mean, that's not the Trinity. I mean,
Yeah.
there's this deep threeness, but I mean, if I'm going to go on board with the Trinity, then I'm going to go on board with the Nicene Creed. But then there's like I can't remember what is Nicene Creed Greek.
Yes.
Whatever, like whatever the word for substance is in the Greek, I'm like, I don't know what that word means, and I don't understand that by any means. And that's kind of like the key, to me at least, that's the key word for the whole creed, is that this God is three substances. And I'm like, well, explain that to me, because I can't track there.
And add to that divine simplicity, which basically almost all is one of the things that like basically all of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism certainly agreed to until from the year 1000 to 1500, and generally I would say agree with as well, which is God is not composed of parts, right? So I heavily lean towards, while the Bible does describe God in very important ways, and we should pay attention to the ways that
You're gonna go pure mystic, aren't you? It's ineffable.
yeah, I mean,
Or he is ineffable. Father's ineffable.
there is, you have to start with a sort of intellectual humility, right? That God is beyond, right, all our understandings. Lo kemachshavatchem machshavatavai. My thoughts are not like your thoughts, right? And like when you start with that and then go, okay, there are some things which are revealed, and I will try to understand them to the best of my ability, but retain your intellectual humility, you get a lot farther than what too many people do, which is then start making assertions other than that which was revealed by the Bible, which I would say the Nicene Creed is, right? It's an attempt to formulate. And frankly, this is one of my big talking points against Trinitarians is you're trying to tell me that Jesus was especially incarnating God in the world, yet his descriptions of himself and God and the world are inferior to these creeds which you later developed. You're trying to tell me Jesus was God, but not a very good teacher. Like, if
I mean, so like sorry, go ahead.
Like if you believe that like the Nicene Creed is so important, why didn't Jesus teach it?
Well, and I mean, like growing up in sola scriptura, like that was my response to, right, like Protestant pastors was like, okay, but you're putting on something, a burden on me that's outside of sola scriptura, and when I sola scriptura you need these other burdens. I'm going, well, this isn't sola scriptura at all. And when I audited seminary, and I was very lucky to have a couple brilliant professors, in my estimation. And one of them was like, "Listen, everything we're doing here it's a three-legged stool. There is the Bible, there is tradition, and there is the Spirit of God." And I've leaned on that, and that has been that's how I got here, I guess. Eventually, I mean, I still went into deep exile and left everything behind for 8 years. But that also, like, to be 25 years old and to be in a big church, and then to have, I mean, all of my family and my entire like formational tribe, deem me heretic, apostate, and then be cast out into the wilds for years, to a degree that freed me then to where it's like, I wouldn't say I feel comfortable having this conversation with you, but I haven't looked in the chat. And if the chat's full of all of the people I've met from the last 2 months who I really enjoy calling me a heretic and an apostate, it's like, well, that's fine, because my father and mother did that 8 years ago, and they love me still today. So, like, I'll be okay if I'm deemed that again.
Wow, we have people actually watching on Twitter. La Familia Bazzani, who's a friend of mine. The point of the creed, trying to steal man, are to set up fence posts for allowable teaching. Look, the idea of that threefold stool of God's Holy Spirit, Scripture, and tradition, that's one way you can put it. I'll tell here. We only have about 10 minutes left, but I will tell you one of my favorite stories. A young man hears of a fruit that is beyond compare to any other thing he has ever eaten. And he's told about how great this particular fruit is. And he decides that his life mission is to go in search of this fruit. And so he starts asking around, and he visits libraries and sages and hermits and holy men. He crosses oceans and mountain ranges and deserts. He wanders looking for this fruit for year after year after year. And at his old age, he arrives at this magnificent tree, and the fruit is there, and he picks the fruit and he bites into it, and it's everything he had ever hoped for. It makes the entire journey worthwhile. And as he does that, a little child walks up to the tree, picks up one of the fruits, and starts eating. He turns to the child and he says, I spent my whole life looking for this tree. How did you get here? And the child says, I was born here. Now, in one sense, I think that is a perfect analogy for what it is like to be born a Jew. I was born here. I was born at the foot of this tree. But my responsibility as someone who was born at the foot of this tree is to take that fruit and cultivate it and process it and make something out of it, ferment it, right? because that's my life journey.
Mhm.
Right? And to some degree, there is an appreciation for that fruit that the old man who spent his entire life looking for it will have, that the child will never have, because he was never without it. Right? But if you take that analogy and you truly apply it to the idea of a relationship with an infinite God, a living God, right? The verse from the Bible that is actually read most common in Jewish liturgy throughout the year, because it is read on all of the fast days, is from Isaiah. Dirshu Hashem behimatzo. Usually translated as find God where he is to be found. Search for God where he is to be found. I think it could equally be when he is to be found. But it's, if you believe in a living God, you don't believe that everyone will find the same tree, will in the same place, right? There's no standard relationship with God, because if God is like our father, and God is like our husband, and God is like our master, right? And those are the three canonical, well, there's also God is our king and we are his subjects. Those are the four canonical relationships that the Bible refers to, right? Master slave, husband wife, father child, and king and subject, right? It's individual. It has to be individual. It has to be your search. And so you were born where you were, and God is taking you on your journey. Every single religion calls itself a path. Every single one. The original name of Christianity was the way. Judaism refers to itself as halacha, walking, right? The Tao, right? Like every religion sees itself as a path, as a journey, right? And if you believe in God, then you have to believe that the path of each person is unique. You got 2 minutes, and then we have to go.
All right, let's go. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you.
This was wonderful, Jacob. I appreciate it.
I love hearing the sound of my own voice, so it was perfect. I'm going to use host's prerogative to put the Reverend Parcells to bed, because he does need to get up in the morning.
Sorry, Reverend. Thank you.
But before he goes, I have a question. Let's say, God forbid, that I were to burn somebody at the stake for not being a Trinitarian. and I did not repent of that. Is that a salvation issue?
Sometimes Jacob takes that devil's advocate thing too
Isn't there
far.
a proverb that says something like, "Don't answer a fool according to his folly"?
But there's a proverb that says, "Answer a fool according to his folly."
There is. Exactly right. And I'm going to leave it to you guys to determine, which of those was applicable in this situation as I go. So, but anyhow, good.
Thank you, Reverend.
Good to
Thank
chat
you.
with you all.
Thank you.
Good night.
The